Good morning. I say at 2 p.m. Hi. It's Sunday, and I have been in migraine hell since Thursday night. I'm in my post-drome now, so I probably can figure out what words are. We'll see. With my migraines, I get aphasia, which means that I forget words, like very obvious words, like nouns, sort of escape me. So we'll see how well this video goes. Like I said, I'm coming out of it. I'm in what's called the post-drome. A migraine attack has a pre-drome, which is where you feel terrible, and you're like, why do I feel terrible? And then the migraine hits, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why I was feeling terrible. And then the post-drome is, wow, I felt terrible. I feel better now, but still terrible. So I'm there right now. My whole body kind of hurts. Hi, bud. I'm still kind of fuzzy. I've done nothing. I did nothing on Friday and nothing on Saturday. Like, I got a lot of sleep, mostly. Hung out with the cats. Barely ate because my appetite just gone. And I read a lot of manga on Friday. That was actually really nice. It was a great way to pass the time. I was reading Until Your Bones Rot, and it ended up bringing like my monthly page count really high just because manga is very easy to read, very digestible. And that one was very entertaining. It reminded me a lot of the TV show How to Get Away with Murder. Like, it's just a group of, they're meant to be teens. They act like they're 25 though, and like the manga is really gross if you think that they're teens because of unfortunate sexualization, over-sexualization of young girls in manga culture specifically. There's a lot of that. That's my main disclaimer. There's a lot of that. You can't, and it's kind of integral to the plot-ish. But aside from that, the plot is a lot of like blackmail and murder and more murders, and at one point everyone's guilty and everyone's done a murder, and it's really fast-paced and very easy to read. So that like took up a few hours of my time on Friday in a really good way because I was just kind of lying in bed, half conscious. I was like moving from the couch and the weighted blanket to bed where there's no weighted blanket to Epsom salt bath, back to bed, back to couch. Yeah, so I'm like barely alive right now. But I still wanted to do, I don't want to call it a wrap up. I want to do like a highlights, and I figured what better way to do it than to base it. My cat is trying to do something stupid and he's about to, yeah, he fell. He's okay. He was trying to get on my desk from the back of the desk, but the desk isn't fully against the wall because of just the architecture of our place. There's a bit of wall that sticks out, so the rest of the wall that doesn't stick out is the distance between the desk and that bit of wall. And he was trying to walk on non-existent desk. Let's put it that way. Oh, there he goes to the doorway, to his puzzle feeder. Now I need to turn the other way. There we go. I don't know. He's Simba. I should edit all this out. Yeah. So as you can see, I'm not really super coherent, but I was thinking, let's just use Storygraph to guide me. I switched from Goodreads to Storygraph a while back just for like my own personal browsing, mostly because Storygraph has partial star ratings, which are nice because I very often am like, is this a 3-star? Is it a 4-star? Well, it's kind of half-half or whatever. And it does stats, and while I'm a neuroscientist, my minor in undergrad was math. I am a calculus nerd, and I am a statistics nerd. I am like basically the statistician of anywhere that I work. So I like little numbers. I like graphs that look pretty. I like summaries. Even though I will tell you all the ways in which my data is faulty and misleading, but that's part of the fun. So let's look at what Storygraph is calling my January 2025 wrap-up. It says I read 20 books. That's actually a lie. It was technically 19, but then 6 of them were manga volumes. The reason it says 20 is because I accidentally pressed that I finished one that I'm reading and wrapping up. It's Christopher Pike's Road to Nowhere, which was the book that part of the Mike Flanagan YA series. It was based, one episode was based off of this book, and I quite liked that episode, so I picked up the book, but I haven't finished reading it, and I've been meaning to finish it, and I was just like, whatever, I'll finish it. I marked it as finished January 30th or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I can finish it in a day. I still haven't finished it, because brain no worky, brain no worky, trigeminal nerve angry, brain no worky. Similarly, 4,000 pages, like 1,200 of those are the manga I was telling you about, the like murder one, Until Your Bones Rot. 58 hours of audio is real, though. I listened to a lot of audio this month, and the rating, roughly, of everything is also real. I tend to read roughly at that rating, like a high 3, which for me is like, it's pretty good. I would recommend it to people who are interested in those kinds of things. That's kind of what a 3 is for me. And average book length was 279 pages. That makes sense, because that includes my digital and my physical. And the average time to finish was 6 days. Sure. And this just proves to you that I read a lot of books at once. These were my highest rated books of the month. The Hearing Trumpet, Magic Pill, and Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I'm not surprised that these made it to my higher ratings. I had high expectations of all 3 books. The Hearing Trumpet is like a surrealist. I think I mentioned that I was reading it a few videos ago, and one of you had already read it and loved it. That was really fun seeing your comments on that. It's this like surrealist novel about a 92-year-old woman who gets a hearing trumpet, so like basically a very old hearing aid, and she overhears that her family wants to put her in a home, and that she gets to this home and it's like the weirdest fever dream. Like, I don't know what was real, what wasn't real anymore, and also it was illustrated, which like didn't help. So there's this like mythos around a winking nun. There's New Age meets Christianity in a weird way, kind of quasi-religion thing going on, and arbitrary rules. There's, I think, a little bit of a murder mystery. The devil comes up at some point. Everyone descends into hell. There's like Knights of the Templar and things related to the Holy Grail. I don't know. Things happen. There's a house shaped like a shoe, because why not? Our main character corresponds with her friend on the outside, who jokes about bringing her copious amounts of weed. That happens a lot, actually. It was great. It was actually really great. I really enjoyed it. I have some funny quotes from it. Wait, I think I actually have it on hand. I wasn't gonna pull out my annotations, but I just filmed a short because I'm trying to get popular on the internet, and gotta tell you, it's not easy, but I have all my books that I physically read under my desk here. Yeah, because I filmed a short yesterday. I'm not good with trends. Not good with shorts. We'll see how long that goes, but I do want to show you some of my favorite quotes from this one, because there were some things that were really funny and really made me laugh. So the first one, first little bit that I annotated, I just wrote, "So true, bestie. People under 70 and over 7 are very unreliable if they are not cats." So true, bestie. So true. So that was already on like page 9, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna vibe well with this book. This is the weird winking nun. What's up with her? What's she doing? There's the hearing trumpet, the weird little thing coming out of her ear. What else is going on in this book? I just wrote, "This is so weird. WTF is happening. Every member of this community is closely watched and studied in order that they can receive help. No help can be of any avail if there is not collaboration and effort on the part of the individual. Face your own vices bravely and seek to diminish their hold over you." This is when I became convinced that this is actually what dementia feels like. That this book is actually written from the perspective of someone losing their mind. Because I could see that as a thing that a doctor would actually attempt to say, and that's what the person with dementia is hearing. Okay, you know the bit about weed? I really want to read this to you because it's so silly. It's so silly. Are you ready? "If possible, let me know the exact measurements between each bar, and I will be able to calculate what could fit through it." Bar here being bars in the window of the prison. She's in like an old folks home. "Cigarettes are always a comfort, and even the narrowest spaces should be wide enough to pass cigarettes. Should I bring marijuana cigarettes to alleviate your misery?" Then there's some things that I probably shouldn't read on a YouTube channel already. This is like this feels risky. "Naturally, I would go to any lengths to lessen your suffering. However, it would be very difficult to obtain marijuana in any quantity, so please be precise in your letter if you really need it." It's true friendship. True friendship right there. And then later on in the letter, this is our main character's friend. I keep dreaming that I am dead and have to bury my own corpse. What a relief it is that we don't really have to undertake the worry and trouble of our own burials. So that's the vibe. That's the vibe. And I was like, yeah. I also underlined a sentence about, it was obvious that I was doing crochet work, not knitting. Crochet work, one hook. Knitting, two needles. Very different things. I do both of them. They are very different. Gosh, here I just wrote same next to a whole paragraph, so who knows what that is about. I don't want to make this video too long. WTF am I reading? Yeah, I can't show that picture on YouTube. Some more stuff about weed, which I am convinced the author partook in based on everything that happens in this book. Oh, this is actually part of the book's thesis. So it's focuses on like a 92-year-old woman, obviously, and she has other old, let's just say old, they're old, female friends. And there's this great bit here that actually is like coherent feminism. Many of us have passed our lives with domineering and peevish husbands. When we were finally delivered of these, we were chivied around by our sons and daughters, who not only no longer loved us, but considered us a burden and objects of ridicule and shame. Do you imagine in your wildest dreams that now we have tasted freedom, we are going to let ourselves be pushed around once more by you and your leering mate? As I'm talking to the doctor. But like, yes. Although freedom has come to us somewhat late in life, we have no intention of throwing it away again. Heck yeah. Heck yeah. And then we can boil him alive. This is so... And I'm just underlining the sentence, this is hell. But hell is merely a form of terminology. Which of us is really real? A lot is happening here. A lot is happening. Oh, there's a description of the apocalypse here. Hail and fire raining down on the earth. What else is going on? There's something about a coven of witches. Like, I'd lost the plot completely at this point. I was just vibing. Here's a cool drawing. Honestly, like, I really recommend getting this book in print because the illustrations are great. And somewhat... How do I put it? Exactly what you want out of Weird Lit. The goddess is a powerful archetype, and her very existence is pure provocation to a patriarchal structure. Women's physiology, which would seem to be the most natural thing in the world, like their corporeality, is always a problem, something to not be discussed. Oh. Kitsch is our ocean, although cyclical processes, menstruation, recurrent migraines. Hey, recurrent migraines! Mumbo jumbo, healing herbs, and infantile trust in the power of nature. An unhealthy love of animals, sentimentality, and the feeding of stray cats. Being overprotective, poking one's nose into everything. All those flowers in little pots, all those little gardens, the hollyhocks, the rags, the lace, the stitching, the knitting, the romance novels, the soap operas, women's literature, emotionality, the accusation of mental weakness that has been pressed on us for centuries. Oh, this is actually from the afterword by Olga Tokarczuk, and I'm like, yes, girl, yes. The afterword was really good. Perhaps in old age is actually the only time in life when we can finally be ourselves without worrying that the demands of others or conforming to the social norms that we have been consistently instructed to follow. At last, the adolescent obligation to belong to one group or another ceases to apply. So yeah, that's why this got 5 stars. It was great. I had a really good time. I'm so glad I annotated it. This was really fun to just go through it because it was like, ooh, my little highlight reel of this book. If you can get your hands on this strange little book and you like weird fiction and you like feminist fiction, Do it. Do it. It's so weird. The most comparable thing I've read to it was Olga Tokarczuk. Specifically, Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. But even that, this is different. This is different, and it's really good. I'm gonna just turn to my other 5-star read of January. I think this will be one of the best books that I've read this year, probably. I really love Johann Hari. This is the third book that I read by him, and one of them, Stolen Focus, already completely changed my life. It's a book I recommend to everyone, and I think Magic Pill is a book I'll be recommending to anyone who starts talking to me about, well, Asembic for one thing, because that's what it's about. Don't make me pronounce it again. I can't do the phoneme of the M and the P. I always want to say an M and a B. I can't do it. I can't do it. So the diet drug. The GLP agonist that promotes satiety, I want to say. Brain no work key. Might be backwards what I just said, but brain no work key. Anyway, what I really liked about Johann Hari and what I really love about his reporting is he takes the diet drug. He's actively taking it, he's been prescribed it, and he's grappling with his mixed feelings over the effectiveness of it and why it's like a great thing for him to take and it's great for his health, as well as grappling with what are the implications for kids taking or adolescents taking this drug? What are the implications for beauty standards? And what about the class division of who has access to these drugs? What do we do about eating disorders? Don't these drugs just facilitate those? But what do we do about people who are extremely unhealthy due to how much weight they're just carrying around and how much their heart can't handle it? And then he really goes into the myths as well as some of the realities around the effects of being overweight or obese on your health. And he really drills into the data and is like, yeah, it's not cut and dry, because it's not. But we do have some evidence that past a certain kind of weight, it's more taxing on your body than not. He interviews a lot of different people. He talks about friends, family, his own reactions, and he also really studies the neuroscience and neurobiology of things like appetite and satiety. And it was a really nice way for me to revisit that. One thing I was really interested in when I was doing my undergrad was the neurobiology of appetite and food, because our brain treats food very similar to how it treats drugs. I remember seeing a meme that your brain responds to cocaine the same way it does to cheese. Kind of. Like, that's not untrue. But we have mechanisms that we have reward circuitry, obviously, that gets us to have more of the thing we just had because our brain goes, ooh, that was good, let's have more. We want this. And we also have circuitry that goes, actually, that's enough. I'm happy. I'm satiated. And that circuitry can go awry very easily, both of those. And I really appreciate the ways in which he went through that. And it was from everything that I remember, and I don't know how well I remember things, but from everything that I remember, it was pretty accurate, and that's been my experience with Johann Hari so far. So I listened to this, it was fantastic. I really recommend it to you. If you have any interest in diet culture, weight, food politics, everything around that, like, my brain's still no worky, but I still want to recommend this book to you. It's good. And then my last, like, really good book of the month that I wanted to highlight was the Grady Hendrix. So this came out earlier this month, and I got it just a few days after it came out. I was surprised that it was released straight into paperback. As you can see, I really didn't annotate much. I just annotated a couple of cool scenes that I was like, ooh, that's a really good scene. I'm gonna want to be able to find it later to remember it. Briefly, this is the plot. This is the story of a bunch of pregnant teenage girls in a house in like the 1960s. They all take assumed identities. No one uses their real name because they've all been sent there to secretly go through their pregnancy, have a baby, give it up for adoption, and then go home like nothing happened. And it's a very frightening experience for all of them. They have very little education around their reproductive health. They have very little insight over what's actually happening to them. There's a lot of blame. There's a lot of really, really horrible discourse directed towards them. And our main character really grapples with this. So when she and some of the girls she's slowly kind of becoming friendly with, becoming allied with, they meet a librarian who gives them a book. And the book ends up being about witchcraft. And the librarian turns out to be a witch with some powerful dogs and with her own coven. And they realize that they can unlock some powers and they can take back power. They realize power won't be given to them. They have to take it back themselves. But if you ask a powerful witch for something, she's gonna want something right back. So this was really fun. As typical Grady Hendrix, it was a little bit moralizing in some parts, a little bit, and very tropey. Grady Hendrix reminds me a lot of like the really good seasons of American Horror Story, the ones where like everything's a trope that you recognize, everything's a reference to something. It's a like meta horror. It's kind of funny, but also original in its own way because of how it brings things together. So if you like American Horror Story, I would recommend Grady Hendrix. I think this is among my favorite of the ones he's written so far, but that might just be a recency bias. I did find it really good though. Yeah, like I said, I gave it like 4.75 stars or whatever, because I'm not like 5 stars. It wowed me out of the park, but it was really, really good. I stayed up late reading it a few nights. I had a really, really fun time. Like, if you're looking for a book of like teenage girls dancing in the moonlight around a fire to do some witchcraft, that happens here like multiple times, that's always fun, right? That's always fun. Yeah, recommend this. I recommend this very much. Let's go back and see what else my Storygraph shows you. Okay, that's not too interesting. I was trying to kind of log my reading every day, and you can just see the page count go up very, very high on January 31st, and that was my manga. You can see I read a lot of manga. So most of what my reading this month was fiction. A lot of it was digital because of the manga specifically, and then I read some print and some audio. I read a lot of horror this month, as well as some mystery. I'm pretty sure that's from the manga. And literary stuff. What else can I get? Let's see, my ratings collage. Ha ha ha. Okay, so this is just a little collage of everything that I did read. So I want to highlight a few things out of here. I finished Demon Copperhead. I started it in December of 2024, and I'm really glad I took my time with it. This is a really great book if you want to know more about like the opioid epidemic. I thought I was gonna sneeze. I don't know if it's coming. Maybe, we'll see. If you want to know more about the opioid epidemic, this is a retelling of David Copperfield. You don't need to have read David Copperfield. In fact, it's really fun to then go back to the Wikipedia page and be like, oh, that's that character, that's that character, that's that character. The narrative changes are pretty like interesting to see and kind of funny. So yeah, I do recommend this one. Believe the hype about it. I don't really know much else to say. I feel like a lot of it has been said. This book won the Women's Fiction Prize, I think, 1 or 2 years ago. It's been hailed. There's a reason. It's good. The other book that was quite good and that pleasantly surprised me was Birdbox. As you can see, it got 4.75 stars. So I saw the movie of this a couple of years ago, and I was like, right, the movie's good. It's based off a book. The book's probably going to be better and explore the ideas more. It did. It was awesome. I listened to it on audio. I think I just spent a day exclusively listening to it because I enjoyed it so much. The sequel, I would have preferred to not have read the sequel, I think. There were some things I liked about it, but I had very high expectations of the sequel, and I was really hoping that they would address what happens at the end of Birdbox, because in Birdbox we have this dual story of our past narrative, which has a lot of tension, and our present narrative, which has a lot of tension, and the present narrative culminates in our main character and the 2 children she's with arriving at a school for the blind. And the reason this matters is because the premise of Birdbox is that people are um, seeing creatures that they cannot comprehend, and this confusion turns them violent and mad, and they basically kill everyone around them and then themselves. So most of the human population dies. Like, when I say most, I mean like most. Our main character is the only survivor that she personally knows in those first few years, and she bands with some other survivors. And kind of our present day narrative in Birdbox is her trying to get across water, yeah, down a river. See, aphasia kicking in. Getting down a river with her children to a safe place, which turns out to be a school for the blind, where some people have also gouged their eyes out, like the non-blind. And we arrived there, so I really was hoping that the sequel would be like, what happens there? How does this institute work? How has it been operating for multiple years now in this post-apocalyptic setting? That sounds really interesting. I was hoping for some backstory about other characters, other things that happened, and explore this world. The sequel starts 16 years later, and it has a little bit of like a dual narrative of what's happening 16 years later, and we have some flashbacks to the school for the blind, but I was really disappointed, I have to say, that we didn't get more meat out of it, because I think there was a lot of potential there, while instead the sequel felt overly optimistic. Like, Birdbox, the first one, is bleak. It's hopeless. It's dark, and that's what I loved about it. And the sequel was like, actually, everything's gonna be okay now. Didn't love it. Didn't love it. What else did I finish reading? I'm not gonna scroll down to the manga covers because they just kind of get worse. They're very like sex and death. Yeah. Like I said, I'm actually still reading Road to Nowhere, which is down here. And yeah, then there's The Colony that I quite liked. The other books I just wanted to briefly highlight: Orbital won the Man Booker Prize last year. I didn't love it. Like, the experience of reading it was so-so. Like, it's written prettily, but there's no plot. But it did make me think about the nature of space-time, and I think it's the first book that actually clicked for me how time requires a spatial reference for it to make sense. That clicked in my brain for the first time while actually reading Orbital. And it was a really nice book, but it took me a very long time to read because there is no plot. It's just descriptions of our planet as astronauts in a space station go around it 16 times during one of our Earth days. During one of our Earth days, what does that even mean if they're in space and experiencing time differently? It all starts to get a little, what is time? What is space? Who are we? It gets a little existential, but I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it. I finally listened to The Library of Mount Char also. Didn't love it. Didn't hate it. It was kind of like if Umbrella Academy and Addie LaRue had a baby, and there's a lot of emphasis on, you know, that like bull torture device thingy that they would like, I remember this from like Ariadne retellings or like stories around the Minotaur, where they would like put a human in a metal bowl and then light a fire under it, and the bull would like blow smoke out of his nose as the human inside cooked. That's really prominent in, like, that's what the Char of Mount Char refers to. I know we find this out at the end, but I don't consider that a spoiler. This bull features very prominently. It's a weird little book. If you enjoyed both Addie LaRue and Umbrella Academy, I would really recommend this to you. If you're looking for something a little more, how do I put it? It's not nearly as literary as I expected it. It was a lot more, I actually didn't know what I was expecting. I had no idea what I was expecting out of this. It's way more kind of mainstream fantasy than literary. Not necessarily a bad thing, though. It was entertaining, and I did overall enjoy my listening experience, which is why it got the rating that it did. And I'm looking at this, and there's one last book that I want to highlight for the month that I read, which was The Colony by Audrey Magee. And the 425, I don't even know if that reflects my enjoyment of this book. This is a book following an island off the coast of Ireland where a few of the speakers still only speak Irish, even though we're mid like IRA bombings. So each chapter on the island is interspread with tales of someone getting shot or bombed or something during like IRA struggles in mainland Ireland. So our little island that's idyllic and kind of sheltered from this has two outside visitors this summer. They have an English painter who wants to paint the cliffs, or at least that's what he says he wants to paint, and a French linguist who is wrapping up his PhD and who has been studying the way that English has come generation by generation to take away the Irish. And he himself is Algerian French and also contemplates mixed identity and how language morphs with colonialism and changes in populations and changes in generations. I found this really interesting given I'm a multilingual person. I was born here to immigrant parents, and I really saw myself in this book in a really interesting way where the book talked about how you'll have like a native speaker, and then you'll have someone who understands the new language but still mostly responds in the old language, and then their children will understand the old language but mostly respond in the new language, and then their children are fully in the new language. And this is something I've seen in different branches of my family tree depending on when people kind of immigrated. But if you're interested in like linguistics, and if you're interested in cultural evolution, language evolution, this book is stellar. It's really slow paced. It took me several weeks to read, but it was really interesting, and as an art piece, it was beautiful. And yeah, I just won't scroll to the bottom of the manga. You're getting the vibe. You're getting the vibe. That's enough. So I wanted to show you one more thing. So I saw this thing on Instagram at the end of last year, and I don't remember her profile, but I will put it in the description. There's this Bookstagram creator, and she designed a book snake where she basically is knitting a snake, and for every book she reads, there's a different colored stripe representing the genre. Because I don't do things halfway, and because I'm very impatient, I didn't wait for her to release a pattern, which she released this week, and again, I've put it in the description because I really want to credit her the idea. Even though I'm not using her pattern, I ended up freehanding mine. This is Shelly. She has these two beady eyes. I haven't bought filling for her yet, but it's coming. And here are different books that I read. And we're just gonna look at my book snake. So I need to buy filling for her. I actually want to get weighted glass beads so that she becomes this like weighted blanket. This is 1 month's worth of reading, so at 12 months she's gonna be massive. Massive. I do have enough yarn for it. And the way I'm making her is that the thickness of the stripe represents roughly the length of my book. So one row is 100 pages, roughly. Yeah, one row is 100 pages, usually rounded up. And for audio, I think one row is about 3 hours. And I'm representing the way that I read the book by whether I'm making it smooth, like here. Actually, I'll just show you that closer. So when I make it smooth like this, when I use a stockinette stitch, that means I read it physically. When it's bumpy like this, you see it better here, you see it here. This means I listened to it on audio. So this was Birdbox and that was Malorie. They're both in red because they were horror. In between, I finished Demon Copperhead, which is what's called a moss stitch. It's a different kind of bump, kind of like creates a checkerboard pattern. That's my digital reads. And it's yellow because it was lit fic. So you can see my lit fic that I read over the course of the month. I think one of these is Orbital. I think this is Hearing Trumpet, and that's Orbital. And then this is some sci-fi that I read digitally, that I read on audio. So I think this is Mount Char. Horror that I read physically, so I think this is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And then in this dark purple here, I have manga. And I wasn't quite sure how I wanted to separate volumes because I finished 6 different volumes on the same day. And I've been putting 2 rows of beige for every calendar day that goes by. So I decided to kind of put these like half rows of beige between my 6 volumes of manga. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of how Shelley's doing so far. I keep debating whether to call her Shirley like Shirley Jackson or Shelley like Mary Shelley. I feel Shelley suits her more. Like, I keep wanting to call her Shirley, but Shelley just seems to suit her more. I also need to actually make her a tongue. This is just the end of the yarn that I haven't cut, but I think it'd be really cute if she had a little red tongue. And I will be buying some microglass beads to turn her into essentially a weighted snake, because I'm a big fan of like weighted blankets and things like that. Yeah, so this is my book Snake. I will be updating her and keeping you updated, because right now I think I've committed. I didn't want to like put anything on the internet about it until I actually committed to getting her done. So I just need to wrap up and transition into February, which I think I will do with like a bump in beige, just so I know where each month ends. And yeah, it'll be really fun to see her evolve. So I'm really happy with this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I want to show you one thing, because as a stitch marker, I'm using this little salmon nigiri thing that I made. This is just with polymer clay. I mixed some colors together, baked them, put a piece of bent wire in here, and now I have a stitch marker. That's very exciting. I want to get back into making some more custom ones, because it's really fun, but as you can see, I just collect hobbies, but I don't collect time, and that's been a problem. Okay, I meant to keep this wrap up really short. I have 40 minutes of footage. I'm gonna try to get it down to less than that, and thank you. This was my January highlight reel. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about. One book that I kind of omitted is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, because it's a very serious book. It was the first book that I finished this month, and I'm really sitting with it and reflecting on it a lot, because it's not an enjoyable book to read, but it's a very heavy book, and it's very insightful, and it's given me a lot of food for thought. So I didn't want to touch it quite yet. If you go to my Goodreads review, you'll see that I actually just reference you to a different review, because I think Zachary wrote kind of exactly how I feel about the book. Like, I was just nodding along to every word he wrote. And I need to put a link of that review in my review, because I really want to credit the other fantastic people who review books, do bookish art, do all this. I think it's really cool that we all exist on the internet together and can find each other and talk about these things and share our unconventional, apparently unconventional, when I go out in polite society, share our unconventional hobbies. That's the word I was looking for. I'm done talking. My brain doesn't work anymore. This was the great effort of the day. So happy Sunday. Well, I'll probably be posting this in a few days. So happy week, wherever you are. Happy February. We're all holding on. We're all trying our best. I'm not making any political statements. We're all holding on and trying our best. Please tell me what your favorite book of January was. I really want to know if I've read it, and if not, I'm always looking for recommendations. Even though my TBR is like 800 books long now, it's fine. It's fine. Storygraph has really good filter features. I don't need to worry about it. An 800 book TBR is a good problem to have. It's like a full wine rack. That's how we're thinking of it. Okay, I'm gonna go keep nursing my migraine post-room, probably listen to some audiobooks, work on a puzzle maybe, not look at a screen anymore. I'm gonna go do that, and yeah, go read a book. Go read a really good book. All right, goodbye.